Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on when, where, and how to use DroneDeploy software. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to mute yourself just to eliminate any background noise during the webinar. Also, if you think of any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat section on your screen, and we will answer as many as we can during our Q&A session at the end. So many of you already know that the use of drones for mapping and modeling is continuously growing in industries such as construction, engineering, inspections, agriculture, and many more. With all of these aerial mapping missions being launched, it's crucial that drone pilots are able to properly capture data and utilize mapping software during their flights. So in order to cover this material, we've invited a few aerial mapping industry experts to speak on today's webinar. So today's speakers are Andy, Colin, and Alex. Andy is a product manager at DroneDeploy and a commercial drone operator experienced in providing mapping services for clients in real estate, survey, construction, and solar industries. He was previously a co-founder of FreeSkies, which is a DJI mobile application startup designing 3D autonomous mission planning software. Colin graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University as one of the first 5 students to earn a master's degree in unmanned aircraft systems with a focus in flight operations and systems design. He holds multiple FAA airman certificates for manned aircraft operations and also runs his own drone services company focusing on mapping and inspections. Colin is also the chief pilot and operations consultant at Dart Drones. Alex has more than 20 years of experience as a photographer and design director. He's the owner of Hawkeye Workshop, which is an aerial photography company serving the film, real estate, and construction industries in Southern California. Alex holds both a sport pilot and remote pilot certificate from the FAA. He's also a Dart Drones flight instructor and is one of the instructors for our aerial mapping and modeling workshop. So we have a lot of great information to cover in today's webinar, so I'll pass it right to Andy and we'll jump right into it.
Great, thank you so much, Alicia. Am I coming in all right?
Yep, you're good.
Great, thank you so much. Pleasure to be here today and really excited to talk to everyone about DroneDeploy. So as Alicia said, I'm Andy Putsch. I'm a product manager here at DroneDeploy, and I'm responsible for the mobile app and all of the kind of mission planning and flight operations here at DroneDeploy. So a little bit of background about who we are, what we do. We're the leading drone mapping software platform, and the scale that we've been able to grow up to is kind of shown in these numbers here. We've mapped all over the world around 25 million acres. So that's across thousands of pilots in pretty much actually in every continent. Our users are making maps every day. And when you look at 25 million acres, what that breaks down to is our users are uploading just over 2 million images per week. And they're doing all that to create thousands of maps per day. So it's a tremendous scale that the platform is being utilized at. And one of the great benefits there is we're able to create an ecosystem. And so to kind of encourage and nurture that ecosystem, we've got 70 different integrations and application developer partners on our app market. And so you're able to kind of plug and play and bring your data into DroneDeploy and do a lot of different things with it. So some more about DroneDeploy. As I was saying, we're the leading software data software for commercial drones. And we're transforming the way business collect, manage, and interpret drone data. Our mission statement is to really make drones and drone data accessible to users in all different industries. So we are horizontal. We serve agriculture, construction, whatever kind of use case you want to utilize drone data for. So we're in 160 countries worldwide, and yeah, we've generated. Our customers have really changed the way their businesses operate by leveraging drones and this data to really save a lot of time and money, but also generate new value from insights that were previously unavailable. And so we're a horizontal play. We're used in a whole variety of different industries. So next slide, let's give you an idea of like kind of how this all works. So like I was saying, the name of the game is accessibility. Probably the biggest strength of DroneDeploy is its just real focus on ease of use. and that's reflected in your workflow, the really kind of simple mobile app. Everything is connected to the cloud. It's all of your data syncs across all of your devices, desktop, mobile. It's available where you need it and when you need it. And then actually creating these missions and using DroneDeploy, it's really, we make it as easy as possible. You're just drawing polygons to create your flight plan, setting up your drone, hitting go, and DroneDeploy collects that data in the optimal manner for photogrammetry. And that's what we use to make those maps and 3D models. You upload it to the cloud, either straight from the mobile device or using an SD card. And then we process that data and then sync it back across all of your different devices. Once that data has been processed, you're able to use a variety of in-house tools. So we have measurement, we create different reports, and allow you to manage and share all this data across your teams and your organization. And then also utilize some of those third parties that I was mentioning before to create automatic reports like Agrimo's crop scouting and crop health report. We also have extremely accurate roof measurements and roof DXFs from our rooftop report. So there's a whole variety of different things you can do with this data. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how the pricing works and how to get into this. So here we've got 3 different tiers to start out with for 30 days. If you just go and sign up for an account, you'll get a 30-day free trial with no credit card required. I always recommend taking a kind of crawl, walk, run approach to drone mapping. We want you to be as successful as possible. And so what that generally looks like for our customers is coming in, doing the trial, seeing how the data is applicable in your industry and in your business. Even for the ones businesses that we have case studies for, that we kind of show you, hey, this is what you're generally going to be doing. We want you to go and do it yourself and make sure that it really is making sense. And we hope that you see that there is indeed a lot of value there. So what you're looking at as some of the different features in the different packages. So the one thing to note and to call out here, the pricing, these are the prices per month were you to buy an annual subscription. So if you're paying on a month-to-month basis, then the pro tier is $129 per month. Business is $399 per month, and enterprise is always annual. And you can contact us to get more information about the enterprise packages. The main differences are the sizes of the maps that you're able to make, and then some of the analytics tools like using ground control points, CAD overlays, and then for enterprise are DTMs, a lot of our enterprise tools like roles and permissions, and access to our APIs in that market. So getting started, one thing, working with dark drones that we're both very aligned on is making sure you go through the right steps to bring drones into your organization and into your workflow. And that starts with getting FAA certified and getting that training, insurance, and overall compliance. So making sure that you've gotten your Part 107, you've done training with dart drones, and considering taking the mapping course is a really excellent way to go about that as well. But it also, part of that also is in setting up your standard operating procedures internally, starting with one drone pilot within your whether it's a specific division or unit, beginning with one person, having them kind of prove out the program, and then scaling from there, bringing on new pilots, going to different sites, and taking this data and bringing it to all sorts of different parts of the organization. And again, the best way to do that is to start with with a trial with one person, figure out how your workflow is going to be changed by this drone data, and how you're going to want to best utilize it in the most effective way possible. So my last slide here is just kind of why DroneDeploy. What are some of the benefits of the system and the software here? The leading benefit of our platform is really just the ease of use. and the simplicity. We make flight planning a breeze. The drone flights are completely automated. So again, you don't have to worry about how you're collecting that data. You just specify your intent. I want to map this area that I've kind of drawn out in this polygon, and that data is that the drone flies and collects the data exactly the way that we need it. We've got the biggest ecosystem of not only in-house, but like I said, those third-party analysis tools and integrations into other softwares, other programs that you'll use on a day-to-day basis, like Autodesk. If you're in agriculture, using My John Deere, Procore, Bluebeam, we have best-in-class integrations with all of these partners. And then another cool differentiator that we just launched last month is our live map tool. And that's essentially, while you're flying, after you've created that mission, hit go, while the drone's in the air, as you're watching the drone complete the mission, live map is going to generate tiles, and it's going to create a Ortho Mosaic, and so that kind of final map product, but on your mobile device. So you can do things immediately. You can see, make sure that you've mapped the correct area. But also for our construction and agriculture customers, you can just see that overview of your site, drill down, start sharing it, making annotations immediately. So it really is a really powerful tool there that's not available anywhere else on the market. And the last ones are all there. It's all all your data syncs across all your devices really seamlessly, and we manage all that so it's really easily shareable. You can access what you need when you need it, and those are going to be our biggest selling points, and where DroneDeploy stands out. So I hope this was helpful. I'm going to pass it on to the team here to talk about some real world mapping missions and examples of using DroneDeploy.
Great, thank you very much, Andy. So like he said, we're going to pass it off to Colin and Alex, and they'll talk about some mapping missions that they completed with DroneDeploy software. So first, we will start with Alex.
Hi, thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Andy, for that really good information about DroneDeploy. So, some of the reasons that we want to use drones for mapping, drones are really good at the 3Ds, dirty, dull, and dangerous. Safety is a big thing. You can do with drones a lot of survey work and volumetric measurements and things like that in a much more safe way than just sending a survey crew out to climb piles of materials, etc. The resolution is really great in terms of much better than satellite maps. If you're looking to do pre-site surveys, things like that, it's also more up to date. Oftentimes the satellite imagery is pretty old. So they're really great for this kind of work. For a lot of things, and also like it says up there on the slide, comparing data over time, you can do a lot of incredible things with it. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I've done with DroneDeploy. Do you want to hit the next slide? Okay, well, first I'll go into some of the things that you can do, with DroneDeploy. You can generate these 2D maps. These are Ortho Mosaic maps. They're stitched together nadir images, and you can do a lot of good things with these Ortho Mosaic maps. You can measure distance, you can measure area, and you can measure volume. So you can get a lot of good data from these 2D maps. Really good stuff. So hit the next slide. You can also generate 3D models. These are really helpful for visualization. I've done quite a few things for construction companies in terms of final 3D models. They really like this for marketing purposes, on top of being able to do the measurements and stuff from the Ortho Mosaic maps. So these two features of DroneDeploy, like Andy said, DroneDeploy makes these things really easy to generate. You upload your images, and DroneDeploy does the work, and they give you these really good 2D and 3D models. So hit the next slide. I'll talk about a project that I did. So I'm in Southern California. I'm in Santa Barbara, and we recently had a really big fire and this debris flow that you might have heard about. So I was hired by a property manager to assess this property, or help them assess this property for damage. It's a little hard to see, but up in the top corner, top left-hand corner, you can see some of the burn area. These were mature oak trees that were really expensive to replace, and the property manager hired me to get this overhead view of the complete property, to assess the damage, count the oak trees, etc. And I used the DroneDeploy app to fly this mission. Really easy to plan on the computer at home, make sure everything's correct the way that I want it, that I've got the proper resolution, etc. You go out, you fly the mission. It flies relatively quickly depending on your settings. And you come back, you process the images, and within a few hours, you have this Ortho Mosaic map. And they found this really helpful. It's hard to get a sense of the total damage from ground photos. So this gives a really good record of what's happened to the total property, and evidence for the insurance company about what needs to be replaced, and how they want to move forward with that. So the property manager that hired me to do this, they found this really helpful. They were really happy with the results, and would have been really hard to do, obviously, in a single photograph. I couldn't have gotten that high legally to do that. So being able to do this Ortho Mosaic through DroneDeploy was incredibly helpful and beneficial for the property manager. And so this is a little project I did for a concrete company. This was really just a test for them. They were interested in being able to track their inventory a little more closely. And this is an example of how you can use these 2D maps in order to make volumetric calculations. And so the little multicolored boxes there are areas that have been outlined in order to make some volumetric calculations. And I did this flight for them, and we did the calculations, and they were really, really happy with the results. And it looks like I'm going to be doing some regular flights for them in order to track inventory for them. They found it much more cost-effective for one, and a much quicker process. So, you know, this is a good example of how this kind of thing can save money and time for companies. And, you know, really that's what this stuff is about, right? Because if you can't help them with their bottom line, you know, it's great wow factor, but really, why would they want to do it? So this turned out to be a really good project, and again, you know, really easy to plan at home on the web. Go out, fly the mission with the DroneDeploy app, come back, upload your images, and have your results really quickly. So I really enjoy using the DroneDeploy software, and you know, the class that we do will run you through how to use all this stuff, and you know, how to collect the proper data. You know, DroneDeploy does make it really easy, but you have to be able to give the software good information, right? So that's definitely something we can help you with in the class, along with running you through how to use DroneDeploy and how to get the most out of it.
Great, thank you, Alex. And now Colin, will pass it over to you, and Colin will cover a few of his mapping missions.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Appreciate it. Yeah, guys, appreciate inviting me on today and just giving me a chance to talk to you a little bit. Yeah, like Alex, I've also used DroneDeploy for quite a few of the projects we've done with our company. So I have a couple that we were going to share today. Unfortunately, some of these are fairly old projects at this point when I was first getting started in this particular aspect with unmanned aircraft. So I was using DroneDeploy at the time, but features have changed over the years, and you know, a lot of really great things now, and a lot of lessons learned when I was getting started myself. So kind of, you know, point out some of these things. This first one. This was just a project in the local neighborhood where we live, and one of our neighbors had an interest in replacing their roof with a different type of shingle material. They wanted to put on a clay tile roof, basically, and wanted to do the work themselves. So you know, looking for some help as far as estimating area and things like that, and told them, well, hey, let's put up the drone, let's put up the unmanned aircraft and fly around, see what we can do, and use the DroneDeploy software, and planned out the flight. Was able to capture the images very quickly, put it together, and you can see here, using the different tools in the software, we were able to run along, select the different areas for the different elevations, the different parts and sections of the roof, and get the area calculations for those materials. One of the nice things, you know, with DroneDeploy in taking some of these measurements, you know, we call it a 2D Ortho Mosaic, but it does, you know, still recognize that we have our variation in terrain, we have the variations in structure elevations, even when viewing it in this format. So when you are running linear distances, it is also taking into account the slope factors and things like that. So a lot of very useful tools. One of the things that I learned from this in the experience, you know, of getting involved with aerial mapping using unmanned aircraft, is that, you know, time of day, there's a lot of factors that go into really being able to get high quality maps and models whenever we're using the aircraft to do that. And you know, the software can do a lot for us, but it can't take into account everything as far as the environment's concerned. One of the things that you learned early on was that time of day can play a big role, and having a bright sunny day, but late in the day, you can see a lot of shadows that were cast in here. And without the overlays on, you can see on the one side of the house, you know, the impact in that in terms of the quality. Things just didn't build together right. The tie points, as we say, were a little hard to notice. So those are all things that, you know, having the experience now, you know, gives you some more insight. And if you do have to do jobs in these conditions, you know, maybe we can teach you how to set up your parameters and make sure that you don't have the undesired effects. So that was a learning experience. The other one that we have here, this was for just a small land development project. This was a family, an individual that owned this small farm. This was out in central Pennsylvania, and they wanted to sell off a portion of the land and subdivide, basically, you know, open up to build small homes on, sell the parcels of land off. So we were asked to come in and just, again, do a real quick assessment of the area, get a nice high resolution image, Ortho Mosaic, that they could use to measure out, and based on what they were thinking about as far as, you know, some boundaries and where they were thinking these lots may fall in, you know, what that would equate to in terms of acreage and you know, boundary lines and where things would fall. So this was in all about a 40-acre total piece that we flew, and just seeing a section of it right here, but you know, able to fly that within a matter of, you know, an hour and a half or so on site, max time, get home, upload everything into DroneDeploy, process those images, and you know, very quickly as soon as it was done. Just use the tools right there to start hashing out these areas and sharing this map with the clients, so that they could also go in there and play around and move these things around to get an idea of where these lines were going to be. These products can all be, as Andy said, everything can be exported when you're done. So it really does make it very easy in terms of the workflow of being able to go from start, image capture, image processing, and then working with that image and finally being able to export. But again, as far as the capture element goes, yes, the software knows what it wants. It knows what's the ideal. Our job is making sure that based on the environmental conditions that are given to us and the locations where our objects of interest and our areas of interest are, making sure that we can feed the software, as Alex said, the right photos and the right imagery that's going to give us that full and consistent area of coverage. And that's really, I think, where our course comes in and helps connect those dots for you as the operator. So just to kind of wrap things up and give you an idea of our aerial mapping and modeling workshop using DroneDeploy, it is a 2-day course, a 2-day workshop. There is a lot of information that we cover. We start off the first day just teaching you, really all about this process of photogrammetry. What do we mean when we use that word? What is this process? How does it work? What does the software do? Because unless we understand, how the software is working, we can't fully understand why there are best practices whenever it comes to data capture and making sure that the images that we're getting and giving to that software are going to ultimately yield the best results. Then we get into, we do 3 flight sessions over the course of the 2-day period. So we give you the opportunity to plan your flights using DroneDeploy, and look at situations where you can use the autonomous capture, and the autonomous capture is going to give you everything that you need 95% of the time. And then we'll also look at some situations where just the location of the flight, which you're trying to accurately model or which you're trying to accurately map, may require that you do some manual data capture as well. So we also talk about enhancing your autonomous flight paths and getting supplemental information that you can also add to really maximize the results. Day 2, we look at using the DroneDeploy software to analyze the products that you created. So getting in there and using the different tools for volumetrics, area analysis, distance measurements, also taking a look at some of the tools related to plant health with the vegetative index and elevation profiles and 3D models, as Alex said. And then we wrap up, talking about the concept of accuracy and getting down to, what we can do to not only enhance the local or relative accuracy in terms of how we capture our images and making sure that they're the best possible quality data sets to feed into that software, given the areas we're trying to cover, but also, tying that into the real world and going for global accuracy. And how do we do that? If you're doing work as a surveying company, if you're doing this for something of record where it needs to be tied into state planes or other reference systems, you need to know how to make sure that you're able to do that in this process. And that goes beyond, just the software that you're using to process the data and construct these maps. And then finally, we talk about exporting your data. What are the different things we can do there? And we also talk about what Andy mentioned earlier as far as the numerous partners that they have in third-party applications. So we look at some of the most popular ones there. We show how what DroneDeploy is trying to do and what they're accomplishing with this app market is truly building this network where you can make your experience a one-stop shop, and with using DroneDeploy solutions you can get all the way from pre-flight planning, flight execution, image upload and processing, and editing, analysis, and export. So it really is a fantastic overall solution. Looking at our upcoming dates, I think we had next, we do have quite a few courses. Our mapping mapping and modeling workshop has been very popular. The 5, I believe, we've done so far since last fall. So we're really excited about the upcoming dates. Boston coming up soon, Denver as part of AUVSI Exponential in May, and then Chicago, San Francisco, New York metro area, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Dallas, and Orlando, all before the end of the year. So if you're close to one of those, or you feel like taking a trip, we'd love to see you there. And Alex and I would love to share with you everything we've learned over the years and the joys of working with DroneDeploy. As far as just some final notes before we wrap things up, wanted to pass along kind of our overall best practices. Now, these are general in nature. Obviously, we can't give away all the secrets if you don't sign up and come out for the workshop. But if Alex and I, and I'm sure Andy would agree, if we could impart some words of guidance, first and foremost, understand the process. Take the time with anything, to learn about what you're doing. Learn how the software is working with your with the images that you feed it to build these maps and build these models. If you don't understand the process, then you can't fully understand what you need to do to make sure that the data sets you're providing are going to be the best possible, given the chaos that just exists in the world around us when we go from site to site. Number 2, understand your equipment. We need to be able to go into our settings. We need to be able to configure our cameras. We need to be able to configure the software that we're using for the command and control as far as our different parameters related to altitudes and overlaps and the orientation of our different flight routes. So understand how to make all those different changes and how both your aircraft functions from a hardware standpoint and from a software standpoint. Understand the capabilities of your camera from a hardware standpoint, and that'll make it easier to understand what you can and can't do with that particular aircraft. Know the goals. Know what you're trying to accomplish. For any given flight or any given unmanned aircraft use case, we're using the aircraft for a particular reason. We're trying to solve a particular problem. And, there's a difference between, planning a flight where the goal is going to be the highest resolution possible versus a flight where we're really trying to optimize everything for, let's say global accuracy in a particular situation. So things may be a little different from one to the other. Finally, recognize that while our software, while our hardware, the manufacturers of our aircraft systems right now, the developers of these software packages, like DroneDeploy and like many others, everyone is trying their hardest to make these aircraft the most effective tool that they can be. And they're trying to get us to the point where they truly can, see the environment around them and be able to capture the information we need while staying safe and aware of their surroundings. But the bottom line is, this is still a relatively new phase in the development of our industry. So we don't have the multi-million-dollar military-grade technology yet. And while our systems and our software can do a lot of very impressive things, understand that the flight areas themselves may create challenges where we need to pull off that autonomy and we need to, fly the aircraft ourselves and enhance our data set with some more manually captured images. And then finally, make sure you cover your area of interest or your subject of interest, whether it's a mapping or a modeling project, completely and consistently. And what that means is, always make sure that you're getting images that adequately give you defined detail and good positioning of all areas within the area that you're interested in. And also try and organize your data sets. Don't be jumping around in terms of altitude from picture to picture. Get all of your pictures of a given area at one altitude, then move to another altitude and get another data set, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Try and keep things consistent across the board. And I think you'll find that your results, both in terms of the processing and just in terms of keeping track whenever you're doing your flight planning to make sure that you're adequately covering everything, you're going to be very happy with that. So I think that wraps it up for me, but I'll pass it back to Alicia and we'll wrap things up.
Great, thanks, Colin. And before we get into our Q&A session, I just wanted to quickly mention that if you do sign up for our aerial mapping workshop 2 months prior to the date, you will be eligible for our early bird discount, which is 15% off of the workshop. And as Colin mentioned, our next workshop with DroneDeploy is April 4th and 5th in Boston. And for that one, we will still offer that 15% off. So definitely take advantage of that. And I will be sending out an email with some information later on today. So I'll definitely include that discount code for everyone. So we did get a few questions. And as we're going through these first few, if anyone thinks of any other questions, like I said, just feel free to put them in that chat section and we will try to get to all of them. So Andy, I think this question would be for you. Someone asked, is the data communication encrypted?
By data communication, I'm assuming that means the images and then the return, Ortho mosaics and 3D models and such. So to answer that question, no. When the images are being uploaded and within DroneDeploy, that data is not encrypted, but it is very secure. In terms of needing to, you're not communicating through an open forum. You're not sending those that data and that information just throughout the web and through different servers and through different services. You're just communicating straight from your computer to the DroneDeploy platform. And so we are we had a big push last in the fall to roll out a lot of enterprise kind of feature sets, including multiple permissions and single sign-on, which is a big security feature. But we also, as part of that, were required to bump up a lot of our security kind of protocols and the way that we do handle data, both internally and then on DroneDeploy's various infrastructure. So from that side, yeah, it is. We're trusted by Fortune 500 companies, large businesses that have very strict data security requirements, and it's something that our sales folks are happy to introduce. Your IT folks with our VP of engineering, who kind of runs ops and security. But those are conversations we have a lot, and it's something that we're in a good place and we're improving on it all the time.
Nice, thank you. The next question, Colin, maybe you can answer this one. Someone said, I have my own drone services company and I'm thinking about getting into mapping missions. Do you have any advice as to how to get mapping clients?
Sure. Well, in my experience, a picture speaks 1,000 words, as they say. When I first got started with this, I had some contacts within the construction agency. So after I'd kind of, just gone out there myself, first and foremost, the advice is get your hands on the free trial of some software and, get out there someplace that you can get access to fly and just program some flights and map it and run some reports, see if you can improve your results over time, and practice that way. But once you're ready, once you know that you've understand what's happening, you've been able to create some good consistent results with your data capture and the processing, try and get some appointments with the industries that you'd like to serve. Some of the big ones for mapping right now, the construction industry, I do a lot with that. Also road projects, civil engineering, they need them very much there. If you're in an area with agriculture and you're interested in some of the other sensors, as far as the near infrared, putting that information in there as well, that's another big area. But whatever area it is, try and set up some appointments with some local companies where you can go in and just share some information as far as what you can provide. And in my experience, when I've been able to get into those meetings and I put a picture in front of them and I say, this is something that was completed, we arrived on site, we flew this flights. We captured this in a matter of a half hour or whatever the case might be. And, this is what we created within a half a day of processing. And here's what we can do with it as far as the tools. When people can see that, when they can actually, they've heard about a lot of this now, but when they can actually see it in front of them, that really makes an impact. So that would be my advice is, try and showcase and try and, really put it in front of somebody, get yourself a meeting, and I think that'll go a long way.
Great. And then Colin, actually going off of that question, someone also said, which model or which drones are you generally using and which payloads in the majority of jobs that you're conducting?
Sure. So right now, everything we do as far as the company mapping is with DJI aircraft, and as far as the planning, planning the flights and things like that, we have found that the DroneDeploy software works very well for most of the jobs that we're doing. So we do use DroneDeploy for both the capture phases and the processing phases on some of those. As far as the aircraft, because we're using DroneDeploy, DroneDeploy also works best with DJI aircraft right now. So we use our DJI, and we use a Phantom 4 Pro for most of the work that we do, but we also have access if we need it to a larger aircraft platform as well. But we do like the Phantom 4 Pro and the X4S camera, because it does have the 20 megapixel, the 1-inch sensor, and also the mechanical shutter, which we go over all the reasons why that's the best camera in the class that DJI has right now in terms of most of their models. But that's really where we see the best results, and that's what I would recommend: Phantom 4 Pro or an aircraft system with the X4S camera.
Great. Thanks, Colin. And then this next question, either Alex or Colin, whoever wants to answer this one. Someone asked, I am tasked with mapping 180-acre property. Is it impossible to stay in line of sight of the aircraft? Is that, in essence, breaking the law on an automated flight?
Sure. So I guess I'll hit this real quick. And Alex, if you've got anything to add, feel free. I would say I maybe I didn't hear quite exactly the first part of the question, but I would say it does depend on the line of sight issue. So, if that line of sight is going to be disrupted by trees or buildings, if there's no place that you can stand on that property and still be able to, look up and see that aircraft, even if it's very small as it's moving around, yes, you would need to use a visual observer to stay in compliance with the regulations. The regulations tell us that we don't, have to never take our eye off of the aircraft, but if we're a single operator, but we can never maneuver the aircraft into a position where we can't immediately acquire it as far as direct visual line of sight. So if that visual line of sight would be disrupted, then you would need to look at having somebody else there to cover some of those blind spots. But Alex, anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, I don't know, some basic stuff like try and position yourself maybe in the middle of your area so that you're not on one end or the other. That'll help with keeping stuff in visual line of sight. Also, depending on the size of the project that you're doing, you may have to do it as separate projects. That sometimes does work. And like Colin mentioned, working with visual observers in order to keep the aircraft in visual line of sight. Those are the best ways, I think.
One thing I would just add to that is, within DroneDeploy, a lot of our customers, when mapping large areas, the limitation ends up not really being line of sight. It's actually just the battery life of your drone. And so what's really common practice, and the app makes very easy, is you can fly until your drone runs out of battery while maintaining line of sight in one particular area. Once it does run out, it'll return to home, come and land. You can pick that drone up, go closer to the next section that you're going to be mapping, open up that same mission. DroneDeploy remembers exactly where you took off, and you can just continue that mission from that new location where you're going to be closer to where the drone's flying now, so you can keep line of sight. You can rinse and repeat that to map any any size area that you could potentially want. We've had maps made of, I believe the biggest was recently 10 square miles. So there's not many limitations there.
And thanks for that, Andy. And I'll just add that the DroneDeploy app is really very good at that. Some other people have tried to implement that in their flight software, and I think DroneDeploy has done that best. You can really depend on the app to pick up where it left off. It makes battery changes really easy. I think that's one of the real strong points of the DroneDeploy flight app.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Great, thanks guys. And then another question we got, what is the best altitude to shoot?
So that varies, and I would go back to it really comes down to the locations and what your overall goals are. Obviously there's DroneDeploy has a really good piece, both a white paper that they put out talking about altitudes and accuracies, and also some best practices on the website. But we really go into depth as far as site assessments in the course. So I would say that's something that we talk about there, and there's a lot of different factors to consider that we won't go into here, but it varies. In my experience, we've done things as low as 60 feet all the way up to our full 400 feet that we're allowed to within the FAA, and sometimes the ideal may even be a little bit higher. So hopefully the regulations will allow us to do that a little bit more easily than just the waivers sometime here in the near future. But a lot of factors that go into it, so I would say it varies.
Yeah, I totally agree. There isn't one altitude that's going to be best for everything. It's totally dependent on topography, what kind of resolution you want, all kinds of stuff. So
all right, and then another question, how many drones can I simultaneously fly in an automated mode?
If Andy's still here, he can answer that. But as far as I know, as far as at one time, I believed it was just one that you could be connected to and flying at one time via one app.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a limitation just from the hardware.
Yep.
DJI, you can pair multiple controllers to a single drone, but you can't pair multiple drones to a single controller, and that's also they don't support that because the FAA and I'm sure other flight authority, civil aviation authorities where the technology is not quite at a point where we want large swarms of drones being operated by a single pilot. The only exception that I've seen to that are Intel's shooting star drones, but those are typically events that are highly coordinated, and the technology is designed to specifically do that for one use case that's not mapping, it's light shows. And so we hope that, or we see the future of drones becoming more and more automated, and these devices operating on a regular schedule. So you would have fleets of drones that fly and are aware enough of their surroundings to do that safely and effectively. But the technology is not currently there today, but we hope to see it in the future.
Great, thank you. And then to wrap things up, we'll finish off with this question. Someone asked about battery life, and I guess this would be for either Alex or Colin. How many batteries do you typically go through in a mapping mission?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. Again, that's a little bit like the altitude question. It depends on obviously the size of the area that you're mapping and the speed that you're going to fly. Smaller projects you can definitely do on a single battery, especially with the Phantom 4 Pro. You get a pretty good flight time with that, close to 20 minutes. you can do a pretty large area on a single battery, depending on how high you're flying and how fast you're flying. Those are all going to kind of determine how much area you can map on a battery. I haven't done any kind of real analysis. The DroneDeploy software, I do most of my flight planning ahead of time. I don't generally flight plan on site. I'll do it on the computer first, and it's very good at telling you how many batteries you're going to need, and it kind of does that calculation for you. So I haven't really paid attention too much to what kind of size area I get off a single battery, etc. But again, the answer is dependent on a few things. So there's no one answer for that question. Colin, you want to jump into?
Yeah, really just exactly what Alex said. On average, if I had to work out the numbers and everything, for me and the types of jobs that we're commonly doing, probably somewhere around 1.5. A lot of jobs that I would say would be 20, 25 acres or less. You're usually looking at a single battery in most cases, unless you really need to be going slow or having a lot of overlap in there for some reasons. But it comes down to again, the goals of the flight, the overall size of the area, and what you're doing. We'll say that in terms of an acreage number, if I had to give an estimate, probably somewhere around 20, 30 acres per battery. That's probably about what you could get up to with some conservative figures. So obviously plus or minus depending on those configurations. So
the one thing I would just add to that really quickly is that you can using DroneDeploy when you're doing the flight planning on desktop or on mobile, you can just see for yourself. When you draw out your area, we'll show you an estimate that's fairly accurate to how long the flight's going to take, how many images you're going to capture, and how many batteries you're going to need. So if you're not connected to a drone, those are all based off of the Phantom 4 Pro. But when you do plug the app into your controller and the drone's connected, those estimates are recalculated based on the actual drone that you're using. So you can just go check ahead of time.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Andy, Colin, and Alex. And thanks everyone for joining us today. And as I mentioned earlier, I'll be sending an email with the early bird discount code, as well as a recording of today's webinar and a copy of the slide deck in case anyone would like to go back and review it. I'll also include DroneDeploy's contact in case anyone wants to reach out to them. And if anyone would like to get in touch with the team at Dart Drones, feel free to call us or email us, and we're happy to help anyone out. So thanks again, and we hope to see you at a class in the future.